I requested my son to capture a photo of me in this pose. The early light seeped through the frost-laden windows, casting a soft, silvery sheen across the kitchen. I stood by the window, holding a mug of coffee in my hands, allowing its warmth to envelop me. Nearly 2 decades had passed since Johnson exited our lives, leaving me to gather the fragments. I rarely thought about it anymore. The years that came after were a challenging ascent, and I had come to bear the scars silently, like a personal emblem of endurance. Yet on certain mornings, when the world lay still and the snow descended in a gentle, unhurried manner, I discovered myself dwelling in the memories I had endeavored to forget. Johnson's departure wasn't merely the loss of a partner, it represented the unraveling of a life I believed we had constructed together. Ethan was just 6 at the time, his wide, innocent eyes unable to grasp the reason his father wasn't returning. I clutched him close that night, his small arms encircling my neck as if I were the sole anchor in his world. And I guess I was. Throughout the years, I dedicated myself to creating a life for him that felt complete, even in its imperfections. Late nights and early mornings, I had scrimped and saved, all with a singular purpose: to ensure that Ethan never experienced the emptiness that loomed over us both. As I gazed upon the man he had transformed into, I realized that every moment had been worthwhile. Ethan, now 23, had transformed into a person who inspired me in ways I never could have envisioned. His enthusiasm for photography ignited in his childhood, as he roamed the backyard with a vintage, scratched camera I had picked up at a yard sale. In those early days, it was a collection of awkward angles and indistinct images of trees, yet gradually, his perception of beauty became more refined. His talent flourished, mirroring his own growth. I sensed his presence before he came into view, the subtle creak of the wooden floor announcing his approach. He always glided through the space with such silence, a practice he had adopted in his youth to avoid causing me any disturbance. As he entered the kitchen, his presence enveloped the space, drawing me away from my musings. Ethan came to me with that effortless, youthful grin that always managed to pull at my heartstrings. Before I could utter a word, he leaned in and pressed his lips to my cheek, their warmth contrasting with my chilled skin. It was a simple gesture, yet it conveyed deep gratitude, love, and everything we had created together. He paused next to me for a moment, his shoulder grazing mine as he placed his camera bag on the counter. The gentle texture of his sweater brushed against my arm, a momentary contact that heightened my awareness of his maturity. At 23, he stood taller than I did, his frame broad and strong, yet in moments like this, I could still glimpse the little boy who once clung to my hand, filled with trust. I will lead him through the world. I observed him as he modified the strap of his camera bag, our fingers lightly touching when I extended my hand to assist. The interaction was fleeting, yet it enveloped me in a comforting embrace, anchoring me in the present. He existed, heading out to capture the snow-covered landscape, a ritual he had cultivated over the years, his perspective on the world, discovering beauty in the tiniest details, served as a reminder that life, even in its most subdued instances, it was deserving of recognition. As he turned to leave, I trailed behind him to the door, gently sweeping a stray snowflake from his coat. My fingertips brushed against the fabric, lingering for a moment longer than needed, and he turned to look back at me. His expression gentle and understanding. He leaned down and kissed my cheek again, this time with a slower gesture, as if he wanted me to feel it, to truly understand it. For a moment I stood there, observing him through the frosted window as he vanished into the snowfall. The light outlined his silhouette as he strolled, his camera draped casually over one shoulder, poised for action, to seize the universe in its complete, icy splendor. I placed a hand on my cheek, feeling the warmth of his kiss still lingering, and let myself relish the moment. These fleeting touches, these quiet gestures, they served as reminders of how far we had journeyed, of the connection we established through each challenge and victory. The snow kept falling, gentle and persistent. As I made my way back to the kitchen, my heart brimming in a way that only mornings like this can evoke. Might offer, later that morning, I positioned myself by the door, tugging on my boots and securing a scarf tightly around my neck. Ethan had already ventured into the woods with his camera, yet an inexplicable urge within me compelled me to pursue him. I longed to immerse myself in his universe, to partake in his passion for seizing the splendor of the present. It wasn't an experience I frequently indulged in, but today had a unique allure. As if the snow was beckoning me into its serene embrace. I ventured outside, the frigid air nipping at my cheeks as I made my way through the heavy layer of snow. The world appeared astonishingly serene, a tranquility that enveloped you, compelling you to take a moment and breathe deeply. As I approached the edge of the woods, I caught sight of Ethan in front of me. The camera was lifted as he concentrated deeply on an object far away. As he turned, a gentle smile spread across his face, making the chill in the air feel a little less harsh. His camera dangled casually around his neck while he waited for me to catch up, and when I finally did, he positioned. A hand rested on my arm. A fleeting touch, yet it was firm and reassuring. I walked alongside him, the two of us moving in a serene silence. The branches above us, heavy with snow, created a shimmering white canopy, their delicate beauty captivating. In stark contrast to the solid, reassuring presence of Ethan beside me, every so often, he paused to adjust his camera. His fingers lightly grazing mine as I handed him a lens or helped steady the strap over his shoulder. The stillness that enveloped us held a certain reverence, every gentle touch echoing the connection we cherished. As we made our way along a narrow path, his hand gently grazed my lower back, steering me ahead. It was a tiny act, yet it radiated a warmth that enveloped me like the gentle flicker of a winter flame. Upon arriving at the lake, the view left me utterly speechless. The water lay in a state of partial freeze, its surface mirroring the gentle blues and silvers of the sky overhead. Ethan lifted his camera, his actions measured and intentional as he composed the shot. I stood next to him, my hands tucked away in my pockets, captivated by the manner in which he labored. Observing him had an almost tranquil quality to it. He possessed a keen perception, discovering beauty in angles and details that many would miss. I could see his breath misting in the air as he fine-tuned the focus. His focus was so profound that it brought a smile to my face. I approached the lake's edge, the crisp surface crackling gently beneath my feet. Ethan trailed behind me for a moment, his hand lightly grazing mine as we strolled together. It wasn't deliberate. Merely one of those transient instances when two individuals synchronize effortlessly without conscious thought. It caused me to hesitate. As I looked down at our hands before meeting his gaze once more, his gaze held a gentle warmth, imbued with a silent comprehension that transcended the need for speech. Before I could pull back, he bent down and placed a kiss on my cheek, his lips chilled by the winter air yet still remarkably gentle. The gesture was swift, yet it hung in the air between us, suffusing the atmosphere with a warmth that rendered the chill far away. For a moment I shut my gaze, allowing the feelings to permeate within me. As I reopened my eyes, I noticed Ethan had redirected his attention to his camera, immersing himself once again in the surroundings that enveloped us, yet I found myself unable to resist the urge to extend my hand, gently touching a snowflake from his shoulder before allowing my hand to drift back to my side. The pace of our walk was more measured this time, each step taken with intention as we absorbed the diminishing glow of the day. Ethan's hand sought mine once more, this time intentionally, his fingers wrapping around gently before releasing. It wasn't much, yet it served as a gentle reminder that solitude was merely an illusion, that companionship had always been a quiet presence in my life. Upon our arrival at the house, the warmth within enveloped me like a comforting embrace. I observed Ethan as he placed his camera on the counter, his movements deliberate and his expression serene. I could still sense the lingering trace of his touch on my skin, the subtle mark of his kiss on my cheek. A sensation lingered within me throughout the day, a subtle comfort that assured me the connection we shared would endure, regardless of the passage of time. The following morning came softly, with a warm light streaming through the delicate curtains of my bedroom. The air was invigorating, and for a moment, I remained motionless beneath the thick quilt, relishing the comforting embrace it provided against the cold beyond. It was the day of my birth. I didn't have any special plans in mind. Over the years, birthdays have transformed into moments of quiet reflection rather than exuberant celebration. I stretched lazily, the faint aroma of coffee wafting through the house, drawing me from my thoughts. It started off as a gentle whisper, but as I emerged from slumber, it grew undeniable. The gentle clatter of dishes danced in the air, accompanied by the steady scrape of a spatula gliding across a pan. As I rose and stepped into the hallway, I couldn't help but notice the house's vibrant energy, alive with a subtle hum of activity that was uncommon at this hour. Ethan's voice, calm and measured, resonated with a melody from the kitchen. I paused for a moment, just out of view, listening and smiling gently to myself. As I rounded the corner, the sight of the kitchen halted me in my tracks. Ethan stood by the stove, his broad shoulders at ease as he flipped pancakes with a deft touch. The countertop lay in disarray, a chaotic array of ingredients scattered about, flour lightly coating the surface, an open carton of eggs resting precariously, and a few splatters of batter that revealed his fervent excitement. Yet, the table was a true work of art. Arranged with meticulous care and purpose, it featured 2 plates stacked with precision, glasses of freshly squeezed orange juice shimmering in the morning glow, and a bowl of fruit artfully displayed. A small candle flickered in the center, its warm glow casting a soft light throughout the room. The scene unfolded like a cinematic moment, too flawless to be genuine. For a brief instant, I simply remained there, absorbing everything around me. Ethan must have sensed my presence, for he turned his head slightly, offering a smile that lit up his eyes and filled my heart with warmth. As we gathered to share a meal, the warmth of the moment enveloped me completely. The pancakes were airy and delicate, the coffee robust and intense, and the fruit contributed a delightful sweetness to every mouthful. The quiet joy of enjoying a meal with Ethan on this serene morning felt more significant than any extravagant festivity. The occasional brush of his knee against mine under the table, as he adjusted his seat, felt both grounding and comforting in its fleeting nature. At one moment, as I reached for the fruit bowl, our hands brushed lightly, his fingers warm against my own. The simplicity of the moment enveloped me, and a gentle wave of appreciation washed over my being. After we finished our meal, Ethan stood up and vanished down the hallway. I started to clear the table, but he swiftly came back, cradling a small, meticulously wrapped box in his hands. He set it before me, his expression a blend of eagerness and fragility. I unwrapped the gift with deliberate care, relishing the moment of suspense. Inside lay a set of lingerie, beautifully crafted from the kind of delicate fabric I hadn't worn in years. My breath caught in my throat as I cradled it in my hands, the delicate fabric gliding through my fingers like liquid. The gesture rendered me momentarily speechless. It wasn't merely the present, but the sentiment that accompanied it, the recognition of a piece of me I had almost overlooked. A piece that deserved to experience beauty and longing. As I glanced upward, I noticed Ethan was nearer than I had thought, standing right beside me. His hand grazed my shoulder softly, the sensation lingering as he leaned in, placing a tender kiss on my lips. The kiss was gentle, nearly tentative, as if exploring the limits of his delicate moment. It was a fleeting moment, merely a whisper of warmth, yet it rendered me breathless, the closeness of it echoing within me long after it had passed. I sensed my heartbeat accelerate, the space around me abruptly feeling more confined and hushed. Ethan's gaze held mine for a fleeting moment before he stepped back, his hand grazing my arm as he turned to tidy up the leftover dishes. The encounter was short yet charged, a touch that etches itself into memory, regardless of its transience. The remainder of the day progressed in a blur of contemplation and serene happiness. I found myself revisiting the gift repeatedly, my fingers gliding over the fabric as feelings surged within me. It wasn't merely a present. It served as a gentle prompt to rediscover the woman I used to be, the one who radiated life and energy, unafraid to celebrate her femininity. That evening, as the sun sank low and bathed the house in a warm golden hue, I found myself by the window, observing the snow descend in gentle spirals. The house lay in silence, interrupted only by the gentle creak of floorboards as Ethan navigated through the space. At one moment, he moved past me, his hand brushing against my lower back in a brief touch that conveyed both warmth and intention. I lingered by the window long after he had departed, the warmth of his touch still echoing in the air. The snow outside lay thick and untouched, its pristine surface shimmering in the waning light. It was a moment of tranquility, a serene bond, and as I lingered there, I sensed a fresh wave of potential blossoming within me. Ethan's considerate actions, his gentle caresses, his serene presence, all conveyed a connection that transcended the limitations of language. It served as a reminder that affection, in all its manifestations, possessed the ability to elevate even the most mundane moments into something remarkable. The days after my birthday felt distinct, as though a subtle change had taken place beneath the calm surface of my usual routine. It wasn't anything dramatic but rather a quiet shift. A gentle surge of energy that slipped into my mind and settled there, demanding my attention. Ethan appeared to recognize it as well. He began to linger at home more often, his presence infusing the space with a warmth and vitality that made it feel more inviting and alive. He frequently brought his camera to the dining table, sifting through his photographs with a calm concentration, the light from his laptop casting a soft glow on his face as I observed from the kitchen. It was during one of those evenings, as I leaned against the counter sipping tea, that a thought began to blossom. My fingers glided along the fine rim of the mug while I stole a glance at him, absorbed in his task. The way his enthusiasm for photography illuminated his expression was contagious, and I recognized my desire to experience that thrill once more, to engage in something artistic, something significant. That night, I found myself unable to sleep, my mind swirling with memories of the past, of the days when modeling had woven itself so deeply into the fabric of my life. I recalled the excitement of standing before the camera, the surge of imagination that accompanied the realization of a vision. Years had passed since I experienced that feeling, and the realization hit me profoundly. The following morning, during breakfast, I brought up my desire to dive back into it. I felt a twinge of reluctance, a touch of timidity in expressing it openly. Yet Ethan appeared unfazed. Instead, he merely nodded, as though he had been anticipating my words all along. Before I realized it, we were orchestrating a collaboration. His photography and my experience in front of the lens, a fusion of our passions that felt both organic and exhilarating. Ethan recommended a nearby photo studio he frequently rented. A charming space with gentle lighting and a flexible backdrop. The day of the shoot came upon me more swiftly than I had anticipated. I spent the morning sifting through my wardrobe, ultimately choosing something understated yet refined. Among the choices lay the lingerie Ethan had given me, still perfectly folded in its box. As my fingers glided across the fabric, its softness evoked a sense of the care that accompanied the gesture. Upon our arrival at the studio, the space was enveloped in gentle, diffused light that created a warm and inviting atmosphere. Ethan arranged his equipment with a deft touch. The stillness, the hum of his focus anchored me as I absorbed the atmosphere of the room. As we began, I experienced a blend of anxiety and exhilaration. It had been ages since I had experienced anything like this, and the rawness of standing in front of the camera once more was equally exhilarating and daunting. Yet Ethan had a knack for putting me at ease. His presence was unwavering and comforting, and I discovered myself embracing the moment with an unexpected sense of liberation. One moment, as I shifted my stance, I sensed his hand gently graze my arm, directing me into place. The contact was fleeting, formal, yet it remained in my thoughts as the session progressed. There were other moments like that, brief instances where our closeness felt electric, the distance between us diminishing in subtle yet perceptible ways. As the session progressed, a transformation began to unfold within me. I ceased to be concerned with my appearance, or if I was executing things correctly, and instead I concentrated on the moment. With the way the light danced across the room, the rhythm of Ethan's movements as he captured each shot, the connection that flowed between us, unspoken yet undeniable. One moment, I locked eyes with him through the lens, our gazes intertwining with a fervor that left me momentarily breathless. It was merely a fleeting instant, a brief glimmer of something that vanished as swiftly as it appeared, yet it left me feeling vulnerable in a manner that was oddly not unpleasant. As we concluded our work, the studio radiated a newfound warmth, the atmosphere buzzing with the vibrant energy of our creation. As Ethan gathered his gear, I lingered by the window, gazing at the snow-blanketed street beneath. The evening light enveloped everything in a warm, golden hue, and for the first time in ages, I experienced a profound sense of vitality. Ethan settled beside me at the window, his proximity allowing me to sense the warmth emanating from him. We lingered in quietude for a moment, the heaviness of the day enveloping us like a soothing shroud. Then, without a word, he leaned in and pressed a kiss to my temple, a gesture so soft and fleeting it felt almost like a figment of the imagination. However, it was not. I sensed the warmth of it linger long after he withdrew, his hand grazing against mine as he turned to collect the final remnants of his belongings. As we departed the studio, the chilly evening air nipped at my cheeks, yet I found it agreeable. A flame ignited within me now. A flame that would not be snuffed out. It wasn't merely the shoot, or the creative energy it had sparked anew. The connection experienced with Ethan was profound, the manner in which we navigated the world side by side, intertwined in manners that language couldn't entirely convey. For the first time in years, I felt as though I was entering a new chapter, one brimming with possibility, creativity, and a profound understanding of love that tied to us. The drive home from the studio was serene, yet it wasn't the sort of silence that felt hollow or clumsy. Rather, it brimmed with a silent comprehension, a collective feeling of an achievement that lingered between us, offering a sense of solace. Ethan ascended the stairs with his gear, while I remained in the living room, sinking into the couch and allowing the day's events to envelop me. The moments from the shoot played over and over in my mind. The light waltzed gracefully across the studio walls, the way Ethan's voice guided me through P***ses with such ease, the way his presence grounded me no matter how nervous I felt. There was something profoundly it's rewarding to collaborate, to blend our unique abilities into a collective creation. Upon Ethan's return, he clutched his laptop. The screen's glow gently illuminating his features with soft shadows. He settled next to me, just within reach, our shoulders grazing against each other. I stayed put. Departed. The warmth of his presence was grounding, almost essential after the whirlwind of the day. They opened the laptop and began scrolling through the photos, each one more breathtaking than the final. The images revealed something I hadn't anticipated. A rawness, a vulnerability that resonated with both the unknown and the known. It felt like the camera had witnessed deeper than what meets the eye, uncovering layers I hadn't even known existed. Ethan's arm grazed mine as he shifted the screen, his concentration steadfast as he examined the photographs. The closeness felt effortless, almost unremarkable, yet it carried a warmth that I found impossible to overlook. My gaze moved from the screen to him, his features softened by the dim light, his expression one of quiet concentration. "Allow me to reveal something to you," he said, shattering the stillness, yet it was not through words but through action. He leaned in slightly, his hand resting momentarily on my knee as he adjusted the angle of the laptop to face me better. It was a brief encounter, pure yet imbued with a tenderness that caused my heart to race. As I examined the slideshow he had crafted, feelings surged within me. Every photograph conveyed a narrative of strength, of newfound understanding, of the connection we had forged through the years. It transcended a mere assembly of visuals. It was a mirror of our path, a tribute to the resilience that had guided us through the trials of existence. At some point, I came to understand that I wasn't merely observing the photos, I was experiencing them deeply. The feelings conveyed in every frame were palpable, nearly overpowering in their depth. As the slideshow concluded, I glanced at Ethan, my heart brimming in a manner that words could never truly capture. His gaze locked with mine, and for an instant, time itself appeared to stand still. His gaze held an unspoken weight, a profound understanding that seemed almost overwhelming. Before I could process my thoughts, before I could hold back, I leaned in and placed a kiss on his cheek. It wasn't premeditated or thought out, it was a spontaneous act, a straightforward gesture that bore the significance of all the words I couldn't express. As my lips lingered for just a moment longer than necessary, I sensed him turn slightly, his cheek brushing against mine. The moment slipped away just as swiftly as it arrived, yet its mark lingered. A warmth enveloping me like the flicker of flames on a frigid winter evening. Ethan remained silent, and so did I. There was no necessity for that. The remainder of the evening unfolded in a gentle haze of serene satisfaction. We discussed the upcoming phases of the project, generating ideas on how we could build upon what we had developed. The atmosphere surrounding us felt more buoyant now, infused with a sense of potential that had previously been absent. When I finally settled into bed that night, the house was serene once more. Yet it retained a sense of fullness. Rather, it resonated with vitality, buzzing with the promise of fresh starts. As I slipped under the covers, my thoughts lingered on the day, the creativity. The connection, the fleeting moments that had passed between us, each one leaving an indelible mark. As sleep finally enveloped me, a realization dawned. This went beyond merely reigniting my enthusiasm for modeling or acknowledging Ethan's skill in photography. It was centered on us, on discovering fresh avenues to bond, to craft, to support one another in meaningful ways. It was the beginning of a fresh narrative, one I eagerly anticipated crafting alongside you.